Hello everyone. Today I will be presenting my project on Git and GitHub. This will be like a basic introduction on the two platforms. I will be talking about what Git is. Then I will be continuing with the GitHub platform. I will be talking about some of the main features that they possess and how you're able to use them. Before we start, I would quickly like to read a quote from Helen Keller. So Helen Keller was an American poet and writer who was both deaf and blind. The quote goes, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." I put this quote on here before the start of the presentation, just to give like a basic idea of what the project entails and the basic idea of these two platforms. And I would also like to add that before conducting research on these two topics, I had a very different view on programming and coding as a whole. But after conducting this research, I saw that there's much more, and I hope that by the end of this presentation, I'll be able to give you a new perspective on this. So first of all, we'll start off with Git. Git is a free and open source distributed version control system. What this means that it is a control system which keeps tracks of all the changes that are being made, when they're being made, how they're being made to a project. During research conducted in 2022, nearly 95% of developers reported that Git was their primary version control system. As we can see from this research, this shows that it is a huge platform and most people are very satisfied with using this. If you would compare it to a real-world example, you could compare it to a diary. It basically works like a diary. You write like what you did, how you did it, when you did it, and you keep track of everything. I also put Instagram as an example. If you think of a huge company, they have hundreds and thousands of employees, right? So if each developer worked without taking into consideration what other people were doing, it would be a huge mess. Let's take as an example the story feature on Instagram. If developers are doing work on it without checking in on the other people, it would be a huge mess since every small detail has a huge effect since it's a huge app. So a platform like Git would be perfect to keep track of everything and to see what other people are doing. Some of the key features of Git. As we already said, it is a distributed version control system, meaning that it tracks everything that's being happened, ensuring no single point of failure. It gives a bunch of information on why the change was made, who made the change, when it was made, etc. Git also has the feature of branching and merging. What this means is that if you imagine that there's a main branch, you could create a new branch off of that, where you could add new changes, make updates, or do whatever you want, then test those changes before merging it back into the main branch. This ensures that there are no mistakes being made on the original one without checking it off on a separate branch first. You also have the feature of recovering. So if you have deleted a part or for some reason you need an old part, you also have the feature to do that. Here's a list of the 5 main commands that you should know to have a general knowledge over the commands. You have the clone command. This basically enables you to copy a file, a branch, the whole project if you like, or whatever else you want. The way you do that is using the command git clone and pasting the URL. Then, when you have cloned something, which is usually the first step when creating a new project, you then add changes or updates to that. When you do that, you're actually staging the changes for a commit. Then you have the commit command, which saves those changes which you have added. Meaning that if you have just added them, that's not enough. That just stages the changes. You have to use the commit command to actually save them to the local repository. We also have the push and pull commands. The push command basically uploads those changes from the local repository to the remote repository, and the pull command does the opposite. It syncs the local repository with the remote changes made. Here we have an image to illustrate what I'm talking about. Here we can see the working directory, which is basically the place where you do the work and changes. You then use the git add command to add those changes to the staging area. From there on, you commit those changes which you have already made, meaning that you're saving them to local repository. You have the git push and pull commands, as we said, syncing those changes. And you have the git checkout command, which basically means that the operations are done. Now we'll continue with GitHub. You can think of GitHub as an online storage space where you can upload your Git managed projects and also collaborate with other people. As an example, we have a school project. Let's say that you're working on a school project together with your friend. You're doing your own work, he's doing your own work. There's no way to actually check what is being done and to compare your work with your friend's work. That's where a platform like GitHub would be really useful. On here, you could, let's say, for example, add your teacher to supervise your work. You have the option to check what your friend is doing, track the changes that you're doing yourself, seeing when they're being made, and you have a bunch of features which enables your cooperation to be very, very, very much more efficient. Also, there's a study conducted for GitHub where it is approximated that it accumulated more than 100 million users, and it has an annual recurring revenue of approximately $1 billion. So this just adds to show that Git and GitHub are huge and very successful companies with many satisfied customers. Here we have some of the main features of GitHub. So GitHub has a remote repository, meaning that it can host the Git repositories on a cloud. This means that as long as you have an internet connection, you can access them from anywhere in the world. Even if you're in Antarctica and you have an internet connection, you can still access them. Project management. So on GitHub, you have many useful features like a to-do list, milestone, you have a checklist, and many other features which help organize your work. Code review. So on GitHub, developers are allowed to review and comment on each other's codes, make any updates they want, and discuss on the things that are being changed. You also have automated workflows, which can do some operations for you without you having to do them manually. Collaboration without conflicts. So the GitHub system, when it detects that there's been a branching or whatever kind of error where two people are trying to do the same thing, it flags this error and sends a message out to the collaborators. They can then discuss those issues, make changes or updates, communicate with each other, fix this issue manually, and add that back into the main branch. And it is an open source community, meaning that it hosts millions of open source projects. This makes it a hub for learning, contributing to technology, and also discovering new technologies. Here we have an image illustrating a normal GitHub flow. We have the master branch, oftentimes also called just the main branch. From there, you can create a new branch where you can add changes, updates, or whatever you want, and commit those changes. But when you do commit those changes, you're making a pull request. This basically means that you're able to get feedback from the other users, you can discuss on the changes made, any update that you should make, or anything else. Before testing those changes, seeing that everything runs properly and smoothly, when all that is done, you can then merge it back into the master branch, creating the master branch, also called the main branch. Here I've created a table discussing the differences between Git and GitHub. So as we already said, as we know, Git is a version control system. It keeps track of the changes and everything being made. GitHub, however, is the platform that hosts these Git repositories and enables you to collaborate with other users. From this, we understand that since GitHub is using Git repositories, it's dependent on Git, whereas Git isn't. You can use Git independently without having to rely on GitHub. From this, we can also understand that Git doesn't provide hosting, whereas GitHub has an online cloud host, which you can access to as long as you have an internet connection. Git also has no social or community features, whereas GitHub, since you're dealing with other people, You have social features like stars, which are basically a way of liking stuff. You have a follower count and also project showcases. And of course, we have to discuss the pricing. So Git is open source and free to use for everyone. Whereas GitHub is free for the public repositories, but if you do want the advanced features and also to create your own private repositories, you must purchase a paid plan. So we learned a lot about Git and GitHub during this presentation, but you might be wondering, how can I actually use it? Using it is very simple, and here I've created a 5-step plan on how you can get started today. First of all, you must create an account. It's as simple as just providing your email and a password. You can do this at github.com. Then you should learn the workflow. You're going to learn a bunch of commands on this video. If you need anything else, you can research more commands or more in-depth videos of the commands you learned here. You then should just personalize your profile, add a profile picture, description, or whatever you want, which then you're ready to showcase your skills and projects. You can download and upload projects. You can use the GitHub desktop app or command line tools. And you're ready to collaborate. You can have your friends on there, collaborate with other people, and have a more fun way of coding. Here are the resources that I used during this project. I thank you so much for your participation. If you have any comments, feel free to comment them down below, and thank you so much.